What is your moon sign and what does it say about you? So, your moon sign will tell you a lot about your emotions, about instinctual patterns that you may experience, as well as things that show up when you're feeling overwhelmed or vulnerable. So, tonight we're going to be talking all about the moon sign of your birth, how it's different than your moon phase, how it will show up in your life, and what it can mean for your emotional health and as well as your shadow work. And we are also going to be talking about what each of the 12 different moon signs can reveal about the person who holds them. So, merry meet, I'm Aislin. This is Ask Aislin. And tonight we're here talking about understanding your moon sign. So, welcome to those who are joining us live. Say hi in the chat and let us know that you are here. As always, we will have a Q&A at the end, and you can put your questions and comments in the chat. I'll be watching it as we go, but we'll answer the main questions near the end. And of course, leave a thumbs up or a heart somewhere in this broadcast, and that will help us get this out to the feed of more people. So, merry meet, and let's dive in. We got a lot to talk about tonight, especially because we're going to try to get through all 12 of these moon signs. And I hope by the end of this, you're going to feel like you have a grasp on what the moon sign is and, where you can direct some of your healing work specifically towards the moon sign that you have. So I'm also going to be sharing a few resources in the chat as well. So if you don't know what your moon sign is, don't worry. I'm going to help you out with that in just a moment. But I do want to just explain a little bit about this episode and how it's different than an episode we did 2 weeks ago. So 2 weeks ago, we did episode 176. I'm just going to drop this link in the chat. If you missed that episode or you decide you want to go back later and rewatch it, this episode was about the moon phase of your birth. So, whether you were born in a full moon versus a new moon versus a third quarter, and what that says about you. So, after that episode, and during that episode and after it, I received a lot of questions about the moon sign. So, I decided that we would do an additional episode where we're going to talk and break down what the moon sign is and how that's different than your moon phase. People seem to know a lot about their sun sign, and so we're just going to very briefly differentiate what the sun sign is from the moon sign. But not everybody knows about their moon sign. And fewer still, even if they know what their moon sign is, fewer still know what that moon sign means and what it says specifically about them. So tonight, this is not a technical astrological lesson or astrology lesson. We are not getting really deep into like aspects and different things like that and house placements. If you are really interested in this topic and you were a member of our Shadow Seekers membership, we are going to be doing a much more in-depth workshop in there. If you're not a member, you can always join us and take advantage of that more in-depth workshop. Tonight, though, we're really going to look at kind of the practical side of the moon sign. We're going to look at what gifts it gives us. We're going to look at some of the shadow aspects of it, which can help us in our shadow work to direct that work. And then we are also going to be looking at like how through that moon sign how we can best support our emotional needs. This is really mostly targeted at sort of self-understanding, healing, and shadow work, just to kind of put it into perspective. If you become really interested in it afterwards, of course, you can look up more about your moon sign. We're going to start with what is the moon sign. In astrology, the moon sign represents the inner self. It is our emotions, it's our instincts, it's everything that's inside. It's our emotional needs. It's also our unconscious. And that's why it's so important to know a bit about your moon sign when you're doing shadow work, because for those of you who do shadow work, you know that your shadow work is all about what's going on in the unconscious, the things that are hidden underneath the surface, right? So, now this is opposed to the sun sign, and so this is very brief, again, not a technical astrology lesson, but your sun sign is more about your core identity, your life purpose, what you're here, if we're really what you're here for. If we're really aligned with our sun sign, we'll feel comfort and comfortable in the more positive aspects of that sign, and we'll have better grasp of, why we're here and what our purpose is. Also, you have the other. We talk about the big three in astrology. That is your sun sign, your ascendant, and your moon sign. So, if your sun sign is kind of your core personality, your ascendant is the outer persona. It's really what people see when they look at you, how they perceive you. It may be different than the way you feel inside, especially if your sun sign and your ascendant are quite different in their placements. Now, your moon sign, on the other hand, like we said, this is your emotional life. It's your inner life as opposed to your outer life, which is more what your ascendant is about. When it comes to the zodiac, your moon sign is the sign that the moon was in on the day that you were born. So to answer a couple of questions that I had already seen kind of coming up before the episode. The moon sign is going to be less dependent on the time of your birth. So this is good for those of you who don't actually know the time of your birth. Your ascendant, on the other hand, is very much tied to your time of birth. But for this, you don't really need to know it, and most people will be able to still get this accurately right. Why it is not as important to the birth time is because the moon changes signs every 2 to 2.5 days. So it would be possible if you're off by 12 hours, even 24 hours in your birth time, it could knock you into like the next moon sign. But for most of us, even not knowing the time, you'll be able to get this right. So what I'm going to do right now, for those of you who don't know your moon sign, I'm going to put a link in the chat here. If you're watching back on YouTube later, this will just be in the comments. You can go to this site and you can check your moon sign, okay? Now, it will also give you a space where you can click a box if you don't know your moon time, and it will still, your birth time, and it will still calculate it for you. So share in the chat with us what moon sign are you? We'd love to hear. And then as we go further into this, let us know when we get to your moon sign. Let us know if that resonates. Now, like I said, your moon sign is mostly connected to your inner life, your emotional needs, kind of like what is required for you to be comfortable in situations, especially emotional situations. It can be about like where we feel vulnerable. It's about our unconscious and our subconscious patterns, which again connects to our shadow work. And it's also about the habits that we form in order to protect ourselves. So like as we're developing, we go through this world, we have kind of wins and we have things that may be crushing to us or may be damaging to our self-esteem and our emotions, right? And so we will create habits that help to self-protect us, and that is hosted inside of the moon sign as well, or at least connected to it in some way. It's also what you do when you feel safe versus unsafe. Okay, so it's all really about your private life, your inner life. It tends to show up in our relationships. So sometimes when people are talking about moon sign, they'll also talk about how we relate to others. We're not necessarily talking about that specifically tonight, though I will go into that in much greater depth in the more in-depth workshop I'm going to do for our Shadow Seekers membership. So let's see, before we get into what the 12 moon signs are, your moon sign is also not just about emotions in a vague sense. So when I first learned this, when I was first studying astrology, it's kind of like, okay, your moon sign is about your emotions. Well, what does that mean, right? So it's not just about emotions in a vague sense. It's more about, how do I feel when I'm feeling safe? How do I feel when I'm not feeling safe? What do I do about it? What happens inside of me? What happens in my unconscious? What are the emotional habits that I have created in order to kind of keep me feeling safe? And a lot of those are running unconsciously in the background. All of that together is your moon sign in a nutshell. So, like I mentioned earlier, this is not part two of a series of episodes, but it is inspired by a previous episode we did, which was episode 176. I'm actually going to drop that in the chat as well. If you're watching back on YouTube later, this will be in the comments. And this is episode 176. So if you want to go back later, you can check out what your moon phase was. And then together, your moon phase and your moon sign, they kind of work hand in hand. Now, the moon phase of your birth will tell us more about kind of your energetic rhythm. It's sort of how I think about it. It can tell you how you sort of move through life during the different cycles. So if you're interested in that, go check out that other episode. I also, what I think is really important about the moon phase. So let's suppose that what a person was born at the third quarter. When we reach the third quarter at every cycle that we're in, we call this your power day of that cycle. So this is the day that we return to sort of the same phase that the moon was in when you were born. And many people, maybe without even knowing it, will feel this kind of pick me up of energy. They feel a little more uplifted. And so if you have something that's sort of difficult for you and you need some extra energy, you can consider doing it when the moon is in the phase that it was in when you were born. And that can be very helpful. So check that out if you've never checked that out. Notice what sign the moon was in, or sorry, what phase the moon was in when you were born, and see if you feel different when we reach that same time every cycle. Now, tonight's episode, though, is about the moon sign. So we're going to contrast that with the moon phase. So whereas the moon phase is sort of about your energetic rhythm, your moon sign is about your inner life, right? And your unconscious. Now, these two are related, sign and phase, but they're definitely not interchangeable. So what does it mean to talk about the moon sign and shadow work? Well, the moon sign can show us some of our emotional blind spots. So when I'm about to get into going through all 12 zodiac signs, and we're going to look at the kind of gifts versus the shadow side of each one. And the shadow side will show you the places where you may be emotionally blind, where you may be trapped or fall into like emotional patterns that may not necessarily be healthy. I also think that the moon sign of your birth can show you the places where you can find more protective habits or more productive habits, even when it comes to your emotions. It may reveal things about unmet needs that you have. So especially if there is something when we get to your sign and it feels very surprising, just kind of make a note of that, because that may be reflecting unmet needs that you have. It can also show you some of your coping strategies that may not be productive, right? And what we can do about them in order to shift into something that is more productive for us for the long term. It also will show us, what happens when we feel unheard, unsafe, when we're hurt, when we're feeling unseen, when we're feeling dysregulated. Our shadow work is always about noticing these kinds of patterns, right? Because if we can't notice the patterns, then we can't do anything about them. And if we can't do anything about them, then we stay stuck. So really, at the heart of shadow work is noticing the unconscious patterns, bringing them to the surface, and then working through them. And then also, one of the things that we want to there is also, I'm sorry I hope that the sound did not go out. I just got a notification on the computer. So if anybody, let me know if we still have audio. That would be very helpful. I think we're still feeding it live. But it's important to remember that there isn't any one moon sign that is better than another sign. It's just each one has its own set of gifts, and each one has its own shadow side, right? Which is where we'll do the bulk of our work. Your moon sign is not the whole answer. So it's not, we don't want to get fixated on it like anything in shadow work, or anything when it comes to like self-reflection. We want to make sure that it's not something that we get stuck on. It's simply serving us in one capacity, but it is not the whole answer to who you are. So I hope that makes sense. I hope that the audio was not out for too terribly long, but I see that it is back now. So before we get into, we're going to go through a quick walkthrough of the 12 different moon signs. I'm just going to pause for a moment, say hi to those who I see in the chat. So merry meet to Debbie, merry meet Pamela and Jenny, merry meet and Cersei, Anthony, merry meet. Anthony says his moon and his ascendant are the same. And Pamela, merry meet. Taliesin, Isla, merry meet. And people are putting in the chat what their moon signs are. I see a bunch of Capricorns coming through here, and Sagittarius, and several Pisces. Pamela says she said, I've had people surprised that I am Gemini and said I felt like a Scorpio. I do resonate with being a Gemini, but it was interesting to know I'm a Scorpio as well. And so are you a Scorpio moon or a Gemini moon? And and that's the thing too, is like when a lot of times when we first are growing up, it's like everybody knows their sun sign, like almost everybody knows it, right? And but it's just that one aspect of us, and then when we start to know what our moon sign is and our ascendant, and those three together tells you so much. You do not even need to go very far and deep into astrology to gain out so much from that. So Pamela says she is a Scorpio moon. Yeah, so that's really interesting to like be a Gemini sun, right? Which is like it's the sun that's sort of your core personality, but then to have like to feel like a Scorpio, or to have people think you feel like a Scorpio. Well, it's because you have the Scorpio moon. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And merry meet to Peggy. All right, merry meet everybody. All right, so we're going to dive in now, and we're going to go through each of these. Like I said, this is very brief because of the short amount of time that we have tonight. And we will be going into a deeper dive in the membership on all of this at some point in the future. But we're going to start with the first sign of the zodiac. So this is the Aries moon. And remember, this is not your sun sign. This is not your ascendant. This is your moon. If you don't know what your moon is, make sure to find that link in the chat and go ahead and put your birth data in, and you'll get your moon sign that way. Okay, so let's start with the needs of the Aries moon. So the Aries moon has the needs of directness, and you'll see like there's a lot of some similarity here to like some of the qualities of an Aries sun, but a lot of this is coming from our like kind of emotional inner landscape. So the needs are directness, movement, honesty, and emotional immediacy. So like things being quick and fast, and emotions being quick and fast and felt fast. This can be, very much tied to that Aries moon. Now, the shadow side of the Aries moon brings with it impulsivity, and impulsive reactions that we might have to things, irritability, especially when not feeling well emotionally, and fast emotional flare-ups. So for every sign, we have these gifts and we have the shadow side, and then we also have like, how are we going to get more support? So to support if you are someone with an Aries moon, to support your Aries moon, here's a couple of key ideas. So you want to pause before you react, because an Aries moon may react very quickly emotionally, and then may impulsively react outside of themselves, right? So the emotions come up fast internally, and then they react outside very quickly without thinking. So part of your work is to pause before you're reacting. Now, you're going to see all of these kind of support ideas. They're just good ideas for all people in general. It's like always good usually to pause just for a moment before we react. But these are going to be especially true for the person with the Aries moon. Letting your anger reveal what matters to you rather than letting it drive everything. So sometimes an Aries moon can feel like they're driven by that hot emotion of anger. But instead, let the anger bring the things to the surface that you're angry about, so that you could see them, right? So that you can reflect on them and you can analyze them. But taking that space to do so before moving outward with any reactions. So really, the work for an Aries moon is never to suppress that fire. That fire is good, right? But in order to really work with it in the most supportive way, we want to learn how to work with it consciously and not just have that unconscious, that like kind of that fire unconsciously driving everything. So let us know in the chat, are you an Aries moon? Do you relate to, the gifts, to the shadow side of it, to the support side of it? And let us know in the chat, and then we're going to move on. In the interest of time, we're just going to keep moving. So here comes the Taurus moon. So for the Taurus moon has the needs of stability and comfort and consistency. And so these are things that you could see, like a Taurus as a sun sign likes more stability than some of the other signs. So you can see that this is more in our emotional and in our unconscious life. They also tend to like a Taurus moon also tends to like reassurance, and especially like reassurance from like sensory things, or things that are outside of us instead of internal reassurance. Now, the shadow side of someone with a Taurus moon is that they may be resistant to change, more resistant to change than some of the other signs. And for that reason, they may stay stuck. They may cling to what feels familiar. And so some of the important work for them, so like when it comes to supporting someone who has a Taurus moon, you want to notice where your stability has become stagnation, right? Because sometimes, we want the stability when we have a Taurus moon, but we can become too stuck, right, at times, and not have enough flexibility. So we just want to notice, like, when does it become stagnation? And then also you want to be able to build in, that need for safety and security that's very important to a Taurus moon. We want to make sure that we can build that safety and that feeling, but without gripping onto something, because the harder that we grip onto something, the more stagnant our energy can become. And then we sort of lose the ability to go with the flow, which we need in our emotions, right? So that would be some of the support. So really the key idea, like in the real work of someone with a Taurus moon, is to learn the difference between true safety, like really feeling safe, and what simply feels familiar, because sometimes what feels familiar feels safe, but isn't really true safety. Okay, so reflect on that. If you are a Taurus moon, what is the difference between feeling safe and simply just feeling something that feels familiar? So let us know in the chat if you are a Taurus moon. Let us know if you are one, and if it relates to you, or if you resonate with any of this, the shadow side, the needs of and the support, the way that we can support someone. So there's a lot in the chat, so if I miss some of it, I'm just kind of like glancing at it as we go. But Debbie said that she is Leo Sun and Ascending. Anthony said that he is an Aries moon. You're an Aries moon, and it was point on. He said that's point on for him. Okay, so that's good. And let's see here. We got some others that are coming. Cancers and Sagittarius, all coming. It's all coming in order. Okay, so the next one we're going to jump into now is the Gemini moon. And this is my moon is the Gemini moon. So share in the chat if anybody here is a Gemini moon. And if you are joining us late, just know we have a link in the chat where you can go and you can look up your moon sign if you don't already know it. All right, so the Gemini moon. And I definitely relate. I've always felt I've related pretty well to my Gemini moon. I'm an Aries sun and a Cancer ascendant and a Gemini moon. Now, the Gemini moon, the needs of the Gemini moon are conversation, variety, mental processing. So they want time to think about things. They want to think about emotions. And they also like to express themselves in some kind of form of language. I really relate to this as a Gemini moon. I like to talk It's why I became, it's what I do. What's why I do this, right? I go every Tuesday. I go live and I talk for an hour, and I'm talking all the time. I really also relate to the idea of using language to express myself. I'm a songwriter. That's my first degree in college. And so I've always felt that, like, whenever emotionally difficult things happen to me, one of the ways that I would work through that would be to write lyrics or to write music or to write a song. And I always felt like if I could get it out that way, then I can process it better, right? Now, the shadow side of the Gemini moon is that we tend to intellectualize our feelings. So we can fall into that pattern of, like, we're thinking too much, we're up in our heads too much. And so we tend to intellectualize emotions. That doesn't mean we can't learn to not, we can learn how to kind of shift that, but that tends to be like a go-to habit. We also may talk around our emotions rather than feeling them. So sometimes a Gemini moon can just talk it through, like they'll say, like, just like deadpan, like they can just talk about, like, feeling horrible things, but like not really expressing emotions. And sometimes the emotions come later. And sometimes we have to work through to learn how to actually feel those emotions and not just talk about them. So how do we support someone with a Gemini moon? Well, we want to let our thoughts support our emotional truth rather than have our thoughts be our emotional truth. We want to have them support it rather than replacing it. We also want to make sure that the work that we're doing is really about finding space for our feelings that cannot be solved just by analyzing them. So that is, to me, that resonates a lot with me. I like to analyze a lot of things. I have that sort of like intellectual mindset when it comes to many things in life. An intellectual mindset can work. It doesn't work so well with our emotions. So that can be the work of a person with a Gemini moon. So let us know in the chat if you are also a Gemini moon, and if you relate to any of that, if you relate to the needs or the shadow side or the support, let us know. I definitely relate to it for myself. And then I'm going to go into Cancer moon. So I saw a few in the chat were saying that they were a Cancer moon. All right. So, and we've got Jason is a Gemini moon. So let us know if you related to any of that. Okay, so here we come for the Cancer moon. So the Cancer moon has the needs of emotional closeness. So they want to get close to people emotionally. Their needs also, they want themselves to be protected, especially their emotions to be protected. So you think about, like, Cancer, the symbol of Cancer is the crab, right? It's hard on the outside, but the shell is hard on the outside, but they're soft on the inside. So very emotional people, but they can, in order to protect themselves, put that shell around them. They want to find a sense of belonging. They want to be treated like tenderly, and they want to treat others that way as well. It doesn't mean that they can't have big swings of emotions, but these tend to be like the core needs. Now, on the shadow side of it, a Cancer moon can be defensive, can withdraw. So especially if they feel like emotions are very overwhelming, they may withdraw from people. They may be moody, so kind of shifting, changing emotions very quickly. And they may over-identify with old wounds. So really, like, carrying those wounds from childhood and early in life, and really like building our identity around them. So part of the work of a Cancer moon is learning how to let go of some of the old wounds. It doesn't mean that, like, we're writing them off or like making them disappear, but just like letting go of some of the identity that we have towards those, so that the person can move into a more supportive identity, right? So how do we support someone with a Cancer moon? Well, we want to they want emotional safety. So we want to create an environment that feels emotionally safe without having to hide in the shell all the time. So for somebody with a Cancer moon, it may take a while to get to, like, know someone and get to trust them. Once a Cancer moon trusts somebody, then they are, they can often express emotions much better than, for example, a Gemini moon might, which is always intellectualizing them. But it can take some time to get to that place where the Cancer moon actually feels that kind of trust. So, what is the work of the Cancer moon? Well, the work is really about it's about learning how to feel deeply without being ruled by every kind of wave of the ocean or wave of the water. So every emotional kind of wave that comes in, we don't want it to just carry us away, right? So that can be the work of the Cancer moon, is kind of being able to stand there and have the waves come in and be able to deal with them without being swept away. So let us know in the chat if you are a Cancer moon, if that resonates with you. And we're going to just keep moving, because I know that if I get too distracted, we're not going to get through all 12 signs. So let us keep moving. We're moving into the Leo moon now. Okay, so the needs of the Leo moon is warmth, emotional warmth, appreciation. So they want to know that they're appreciated. They want to really feel that from other people. Being able to express themselves from the heart. So we always think of like the Leo is connected to the sun. It's connected to the heart chakra as well. And kind of like really being able to express yourself from your heart is a key part of the Leo moon, and also being able to be seen. So if a Leo moon feels that they're not being seen, then that can be kind of emotionally scarring, right? Now, the shadow side of the Leo moon is pride. So they may feel very proud, which is a good thing, but can move into the shadow side, right? Maybe dramatizing their pain, being very dramatic about how they feel, and needing validation to feel secure. So looking for like outside sources to help validate the way that we feel inside, can be some of the shadow work of the Leo moon. Now, how do you support, if you have a Leo moon, how do you support that? Well, you want to be able to honor that desire to be seen. You don't want to like negate it or try to turn it off or things like that. But just allowing it to be honored while still building your inner self-worth. So not having it all be about what's on the outside and what's showing, being able to build what's the worth that you feel inside as well. So really, to me, the work of a Leo moon is learning how to offer yourself some kind of an affirmation that is the affirmation that you want to come from others. So rather than just waiting for somebody else to affirm to you, like you're okay, you're emotionally secure, you're seen, developing that for yourself inside. And that can be part of your shadow work. So let us know in the chat if you are a Leo moon and if any of that resonates. And Taliesin said he is a Cancer moon, and he said that it resonated for him. And Jason said he related very heavily to the Gemini moon. And if you are not relating to yours, that's okay too. It does seem to be that like a lot of people will resonate when they hear some of this. They will resonate with their moon in a way that they had never really experienced before. Okay, so Jen is an Aries, Leo, Leo, so all three in that fire, right? And she resonates with a lot of it. And she said the shadow side in her younger self, especially. And that's true too. Like for somebody who may have done a lot of shadow work, you may relate to it from a different point in your life. And maybe because of all the work you're doing, you don't relate as much to it anymore, at least that shadow side of it. Okay, so we are moving on now to the Virgo moon. So the Virgo moon has the needs of order. So they want things to be in order. They want to feel useful, and they want to know that they are useful. And oftentimes they need more clarity than some of the other signs. And I think too, when it comes to like a Virgo moon, it's like the Virgo is a sign that tends to be very practical. So when it comes to caring for the Virgo moon, there's like this practical element to it. It's like they want their care, they want what they do to be practical and to have like what's the word I'm looking for? Like to connect to more than just working on their inner self, but have it to see those ripples and those waves in the outside world as well. So it's like practical for like their daily life. Now, the shadow side of a Virgo moon is that it can be self-critical. You know, all of us have that sort of self-critical capacity. The Virgo moon may have more of it than the rest of us. The Virgo moon tends to be perfectionistic and may have more worry than the rest of us, and also may try to fix their emotions before they feel them. So remember, the Gemini moon wants to talk about them without feeling them. The Virgo moon may be trying to fix them because they're trying to fix a lot of things, right? They're trying to fix them without feeling them. So that can be some of your work if you're a Virgo moon. So the support that you need is, to let your care also include compassion. So not just that practical aspect of it, but to really be able to find self-compassion for yourself. And it's not just about like fixing your emotions or correcting them. It's about feeling them, and then gaining insight from them and then working through them. So I think really the work of a Virgo moon is to try to let go of some of the self-judgment, let go of some of the worry, really just try to feel your emotions as much as you can without trying to improve them first. That would be my kind of key takeaway idea for the Virgo moon. So let us know in the chat if you are a Virgo moon and if any of that resonates with you. And we're going on to Libra now. So the Libra moon has the needs of harmony. You know, Libra is a sign of balance. So they want to have emotional harmony. They want harmony within relationships. They want to feel connected to other people and also to themselves, to their emotions. Fairness is really important to them. So they want to know that there's fairness within their relationships and that there's some kind of relational balance. So it's really important. It should be important to all of us to find relational balance so that it's not just all us giving and somebody else taking or vice versa. But this is especially true for the Libra. They really want to see, they have that need to see that true balance within their relationships. Now, the shadow side of the Leo moon is we can fall into the habit of people pleasing because we're trying to create, so the Libra moon is trying to create that balance and that harmony. And so they may fall into that pattern of people pleasing. Conflict avoidance because they're trying to keep the peace in their relationships. And then possibly also sort of projecting their own emotional truth out onto other people. So maybe there's like something in their own emotions that is coming up, and rather than deal with it, they may project it out onto other people, which is what many of us tend to do with our shadow work, right? Our more difficult things that come up, we project out. The Libra moon may do this a little bit more with their emotions. Now, supporting yourself or receiving support from others when you have a Leo moon, this is about really being able to practice being honest with yourself, being honest with other people, even if it means it disrupts your own peace or it disrupts the kind of surface peace in your relationships, really figuring out a way to practice honesty in how you feel. So I think for the for the Libra moon, the work is really trying to remember that peace and honesty are going to need each other, and that in order to have peace in relationships, we have to be honest, because we don't want just that surface peace because we've sort of like given away who we are. We want it to be honest peace, right? So really think about what that means. If you're a Libra moon, how can I have peacefulness within my relationships and at the same time be honest? So let us know in the chat if you are a Libra moon and if any of that relates to you. And also, if you're watching back on YouTube later, put it in the chat too. We'd love to see what sign you are and if you are relating to it. Okay, so Peggy said she's resonating with the Cancer moon and she's a Pisces moon. And I do believe that everybody can resonate with all of these. Honestly, I feel like you could resonate with every single one of them because they all offer us like something very healthy for the way that we work with and process our emotions. Pisces and Cancer both being water signs, it doesn't surprise me because, they are going to be related. But I would, there's probably no way that you would be off so much in your birth date that you would actually be the Pisces moon when you're instead of a Cancer moon. So I would, make sure, look at what's going on with the Cancer moon, try to figure out why you don't relate to it as much, because sometimes there can be some resistance when we don't relate to some of the things that are listed in the one that we actually were born with. So just look at that, and that could be some of your work and your shadow work. Tabitha is a Cancer moon. She said it relates, and she said it's definitely the work that she's been doing. So that's good. It's always nice when it's confirming, right? And then Peggy did say that she was a Cancer rising as well. So that makes sense as well. So Cancer rising and Cancer moon. Okay, so continuing on, that brings us now to the Scorpio moon, and I remember there were a couple of Scorpio moons in there. So the needs of the Scorpio moon, depth. So depth with emotions. A Scorpio moon is not going to be too into like really surface emotions or surface relationships unless they are kind of repressing some of that or avoiding some of that. And if that's the case for a Scorpio moon, so like a Scorpio moon who's like feeling like very surface level probably needs to go deeper. That's what your shadow work is going to be about. Scorpio moons also want honesty the way that the Libra moon wants. They tend to want emotional intensity as well. So they really want to feel emotions, and they want to relate to other people who can feel deeply. But at the same time, they can be very private people, so they may not necessarily want to talk about all of it. Sometimes they want to just feel it themselves. Now, the shadow side of the Scorpio moon is secrecy. So, right, so like that need for privacy, if it tips too far into the shadow side, can turn into secrecy, suspicion, wanting to control relationships, wanting to control emotions, and also may become emotionally defensive. So, if you want to support yourself as a Scorpio moon, or a way to support someone with a Scorpio moon, is to really let the vulnerability become come to the surface, right? Allow yourself to be vulnerable rather than to be so armored, and so that need to have the privacy and the secrecy, you can challenge yourself. Well, what if I shared a little bit more? Like, I'm really deep, as a Scorpio moon, a person's really deep. They may be afraid of like expressing all that depth. But maybe challenging themselves to express a little of it at a time and just kind of see how it is until they're able to express more and more. So I think that the real work of someone with a Scorpio moon is to learn when protection is wise and necessary, because sometimes it is with certain people, right? And then when it's just becoming a wall or it's becoming habit. So share in the chat with us if you're relating to your Scorpio moon, if you are Scorpio moon, and if you relate to it. And then that brings us to the Sagittarius moon. So the Sagittarius moon has the needs of freedom, finding meaning, and also trying to gain a perspective. So perspective from their emotion, they feel their emotions, but then they're trying to gain perspective from that. And they also need to make space for their emotions. So we all should, right? But the Sagittarius moon has even a greater need to really have that emotional space. Now, what can happen to them on the shadow side is they may avoid the heaviness. They may feel restless. Many of us can, but the Sagittarius moon may feel that even more. They may also bypass their feelings through feeling optimistic or just being like, okay, I'm trying to have this optimistic side to my personality. So we just have to be careful, like when we're feeling optimism, we're trying to look on the bright side. Is that really what we need right now? Or is it us trying to bypass our feelings? Or escape from something, right? So if you are a Sagittarius moon, in order to support yourself, or the way another could support someone with a Sagittarius moon, is through allowing them to have freedom without abandoning that emotional depth. So, being able to kind of move through life freely as you want, and also being able to be deep in your emotions when the time is, when it, when it's the time is called for. So I really think the work of a Sagittarius moon is about learning that your depth does not have to mean that you are being confined either. Like, see, the Scorpio moon tends to feel really comfortable in the depth. The Sagittarius moon has the depth, but may not feel so comfortable in it because it may feel like they're like confined by how they feel. So your work is learning that depth does not mean that you're confined. It just means that you're feeling something really deeply, and now what can you do about it? So let us know in the chat if you are a Sagittarius moon and if that relates to you at all. And we're going to keep moving. So here we come to the Capricorn moon. So Capricorn moon likes structure, likes reliability, especially in relationships, wants to know that they are reliable, likes self-control, likes to be in control of the self, and really needs their trust to be earned. So a Capricorn moon won't really give away their trust easily, but it can be earned. Now, on the shadow side of the Capricorn moon, they can suppress their emotions. There are some signs that easily feel emotions, like Cancer, right? Cancer will feel emotions very, very easily. The Capricorn moon is the opposite of Cancer, and it can really feel like the opposite of Cancer. It could really feel like it's really suppressing its emotions. So that can be part of the work, is learning how to not suppress emotions and rather let them come to the surface and be expressed. The Capricorn moon, there's also can take on a lot of responsibility. So they have to be careful. Like, am I taking on responsibility because I need to, or because the situation calls for it, or is this just me doing it out of habit? And the Capricorn moon, like many of us, have a difficulty receiving care and receiving help, but that can be extra hard for someone with a Capricorn moon. So to support yourself, if you have a Capricorn moon, or the way that others can support someone with a Capricorn moon, is to, the Capricorn moon needs to soften into the belief that their strength means carrying everything alone. So Capricorn moon wants to be thought of as strong, and it may feel threatening to be like, okay, I have to delegate this or give this away or ask for help. So I think that is a big component of the Capricorn moon, is learning how to ask for help and learning that getting help, receiving aid, is not the same thing as being weak, right? So your work is really about allowing your emotional life to exist, and feeling more comfortable with it, instead of treating it like it is a weakness. So let us know in the chat if any of that resonates with you. And also, like we had mentioned earlier, if you've done a lot of shadow work, you may not relate as much to the shadow side. But also, ask yourself, am I not relating to the shadow side because, I've done this work, or because I am kind of avoiding it? That can also be, or resisting it. So it can be a fine line to walk between that. Okay, so moving on to the Aquarius moon. So the needs of the Aquarius moon are space. So they need a lot of emotional space, like the Capricorn moon, or rather, sorry, like the Sagittarius moon. They do want to find perspective. They like to maybe shift perspectives and see it from another person's perspective. The Aquarius moon seeks out independence. They tend to be more independent in relationships than others, and they want that room to be different, or they want the space and the room to be different. They don't want to just blend in usually. So they tend to stick out, and may like the company of others who stick out as well. So now the shadow side of the Aquarius moon can be detachment and aloofness. So like it can look like they don't care, even though they may care deeply, but it may look on the surface like they don't. But they also may actually, the shadow side of it is they may develop that aloofness where they don't feel things, and that can be a form of resistance. They may distance themselves from kind of emotional immediacy. So if we think back all the way to the Aries moon, they want that emotional immediacy. Aquarius moon may distance themselves from it. So, supporting your Aquarius moon is realizing that insight and feeling can coexist, so we can have our emotions at the same time that we have our insight, and they don't have to be mutually exclusive. They can exist at the same time. So I really think, some of the Aquarius moon's work, your shadow may cause you to detach and keep your feelings at arm's length. But, your real work is to try to, not give up perspective, but at the same time, have the space to feel your emotions, to bring them into your heart, to let your heart open and just feel them, and not feel like that's challenging your need to be different or something like that. So let us know in the chat if you are an Aquarius moon and if any of that relates to you. And then we're moving to the final one. So this is Pisces. So the Pisces moon has the needs of emotional softness. So there's going to be some similarities here with Cancer. Pisces moons tend to have a really big imagination and a very deep spiritual connection. So a lot of their relationships are like have a spiritual component to them. They also tend to be very heart-centered and feel a lot of compassion for others. But on the shadow side, the Pisces moon can become overwhelmed. They may find that their boundaries are easily broken, or they have holes in them that they let people kind of through when maybe the boundaries should have been stricter. The Pisces moon may find themselves falling into escapism, because the emotions become so much, and there's just this element of, like, on the shadow side of it, checking out, right, escaping from it. But they also, on the other hand, they may absorb a lot. So, like, if you are let's say you're an empath, and then at the same time you're a Pisces moon, you want to be especially aware of the fact that you may absorb even more energy than your typical empath would. So the supporting a Pisces moon is about building healthy relationships, that protect how sensitive you are, without shutting you down inside. So I think some of the work here is, being protective of your sensitivity, letting your sensitivity shine and be a real strength within you. But at the same time, not falling into overwhelm, confusion, or escapism, or any of those, because you're not only feeling your own emotions, you're also feeling the emotions of other people. So if you are a Pisces moon, let us know in the chat if that relates to you at all, if you relate to the shadow side of it or any of that. And then we're just going to kind of just going to short recap here, and then we'll move into the Q&A. So, remember that this is just one part of your chart. It is not meant to define you in any way. There's no sign that is better or worse for anyone. Every sign has gifts and shadow side. And, I think, to me, the work is really taking your gifts and being able to bring them front and center, really feel secure in the gifts of your moon sign, and then at the same time being aware of your shadow side of that moon sign, being aware of, like, what can you do? Can you work through any of it in your shadow work? Are you avoiding any parts of it or resisting any parts of it? Then that would be even more important to bring it into your shadow work. The goal is not to label yourself and just so you fit into some box. It is to try to find self-understanding. Again, it's all about healing work, in my opinion. Your sign is a doorway into the emotions and your moon sign, I should say, is a doorway into emotions and into your shadow work. And like I said, we will be having a much more in-depth workshop in our Shadow Seekers membership. So if it feels like, this is work that you want to do and you want to do more of it, consider joining us if you are not a member already. Currently, the membership is closed as we are reestablishing how we're going to enroll new members. But until that time, if there's somebody who wants to join, I will absolutely let people join. So I'm just not advertising it right now. So if you are interested in joining us, reach out. Like I said, we'll be doing some more extensive work on moon signs and the shadow work around them in the very near future. So some closing questions for you. What part of your moon sign feels most true for you? So kind of think about that. Is it the emotional needs that we talked about? Is it the shadow pattern? Is it the support piece? Which part feels the most resonant to you? So I'm going to end the kind of talk there. We're going to move into the Q&A. I've got 6 or so minutes. So I've got several questions that were sent to me. I'm going to try to answer them to the best of my ability. Put in the chat, though, if you're here with us live, if you have other questions, put those in the chat. Let us know. The air conditioning is turning on. It's very hot here in Southern California, and hopefully it's not too loud on the on the microphone tonight. Okay, so let me start with the first question here. This is from Sue. So Sue said, I have a friend who is an energy vampire. I wish there was a way to distance myself from her without hurting her feelings. Any advice would be welcome. Yeah, so it can be really hard to have a friend who is emotionally draining us, who is taking more than they're giving. Someone who is like defined as an emotional vampire, like if we're able to like say that about them, that is taking it to an even more extreme level. Like this person is probably very much taking our energy, consuming our energy, right? So how do we distance ourselves without hurting their feelings? Well, the first question I think I would have is, why is it important to you to do this without hurting their feelings? Because probably this person has drained you a lot, has hurt you in a lot of ways. So I'd really reflect on that. Like, how has this person negatively impacted your life? How have they hurt you in ways? And then why is it so important to you that you be seen as someone who doesn't hurt them when you step away? So you're likely going to find in your shadow work that there's something down there that's worth exploring. It may be something about like, that give and take in relationships, not wanting to offend people. But why is it that we accept hurt for so long and then we are unwilling to do something similar? So I'm certainly not telling you to hurt this person, but like the reality is that when we step away, often they will feel a rejection, especially if they are narcissistic. Many energetic vampires are also narcissists, and narcissists cannot they will not be able to process this well. So there is likely to be hurt on their side, and I don't know that protecting their feelings is going to be in your best interest. So if I were you, I would really, if you were questioning whether to step away, I mean, to me, an energetic vampire at this moment is probably not serving your growth and your healing and your spiritual evolution. So think about, but if you are questioning whether it's the right thing or not to step away, you can do pros and cons. You're likely to find more pros for leaving the relationship. It doesn't mean that it has to be a complete cutoff, though it may be. I have walked away from friendships that we're sucking too much energy away and we're not giving anything back in return. It's hard to do that. But it's something for our own health and our own emotional health, we sometimes need to put ourselves first. So a cord cutting might be in your future. You can start by just doing energetic cutting, see how that feels, and if you have to do something more physical, like do more of a physical cutting, like you don't want to see the person at all, you may get there, but you can always start with the energetic cutting. But I feel for you. I've been through it myself. Most of us here are very energetically sensitive, and so energy vampires, narcissistic people tend to flock towards people whose energy is more open, and people who feel more energy and absorb more energy, and so they flock towards people like us. And then they nestle in there and they feed off of us. And so we just have to ask ourselves, well, how long can I really realistically allow that to continue for my own good, right? So I hope that helps. The next question is from Peggy. She said, I am a psychic empath, and lately I have had the feeling of doom that I just can't shake no matter what. I can't think of a single reason that would be causing it. And she had gone into like her question was a little bit longer, but she said there's feels like things in her life are pretty good, but there has been like more spirit activity around her house. So here's a couple of thoughts for you. So I think that when you're feeling like you said, dread and doom, those are pretty strong emotions, right? So that goes beyond just feeling the energy of the spirits. I don't think that there's anything necessarily like nefarious or evil in the home that, wasn't there before, but it could be worth doing some kind of a cleansing of your space. Whether you sweep it out, you use sage, use incense, you sprinkle water, you use sound. Just the idea of like, I'm not open to having all these energies right now. People who like feel a lot of energy often have very open crown chakras and third eye chakras, and they don't even know that they can turn those down. So you can sort of think of them as like a knob on a volume knob on your radio or your TV, and just be like, okay, I'm gonna imagine turning my crown chakra and my third eye chakra just down a little bit, so I can clear out some of this energy that isn't mine. I would also recommend a lot of grounding, probably some root chakra work to really make sure you're grounded. We want good grounding, and we want good upper chakras to really be able to use our gifts the most. But if we're scattered with our energy, or we're feeling too much of other people's energy or other spirits' energy, it's just too much and we're not being effective. So many times someone who is a psychic empath, or somebody who's like very able to absorb others' energy, is going to need to do that work, kind of learning to turn down the volume of your upper chakras, not shutting them off in any way, just turning it down a little bit. You can always turn it back up at a different time. It's always within your control. The other thing I will mention is that in the collective, I've been hearing this over and over for like several months now. People feeling a sense of kind of dread and doom who haven't felt it before. It could be picking up energy around you in the collective. There's a lot of fear and pain and a lot of like pretty tough things going on right now, with people in power who are moving towards like Christian nationalist narratives. This should be shocking to all of us who are pagan and witches. And so you never know whose energy like around your home even that you're picking up, or even in your community. You might just be picking up like sort of that collective fear and dread that everybody's feeling. Again, a good reason to ground and to work to turn down your upper chakras so that you can get a little bit more peace. So I hope that helps. And let me go to the next question. So the next one was Pamela. She says, is it disrespectful to leave an offering for more than a day? She said, I often make very beautiful offerings. I don't always take them off my altar in a timely fashion, and then I feel guilty about it. No need to feel guilty. I'm giving you permission to not feel that way. As far as offerings go, especially if they are food-based offerings. So first of all, an offering that is not food-based can sit there as long as you want. An offering that is food-based is consumed by the deities or the spirits immediately. And so even though you don't see it on the physical plane, it has been consumed. You just see the remnants of the physical portion of it. So they've already had their share. And so it isn't disrespectful to leave it there. Because it's just what's left over in the physical plane, and that's not where the deities or the spirits are in the first place. So, if you don't remove them in a timely manner, remove them when you can. Decide what you're going to do with them. You can bury them outside, leave them somewhere out for the nature spirits is often what I do, as long as it's food that would be not poisonous to an animal or something like that. Or you can just throw it out as well, because again, the food offering has already been consumed long before you would ever even take it down in the first place. So I'm giving you permission, let go of the guilt, nothing to feel guilty about. Okay, and then the next question, Anthony said, and this is a good one for tonight because talking about astrology, he said, what is a good book for learning the basics of astrology? So I've got three that I typically recommend. One of them, well, let me start with like the two that like probably the best for most of you, and then I'll show you what I learned on. So this book is by Kevin Burke. It's called Understanding the Birth Chart Astrology by Kevin Burke. I'll go ahead and put these titles in the chat as well. But I highly recommend this book. Very, very good. It kind of goes through the basics. It'll get into even more of the complexities of your birth chart, but it's all focused around the birth chart. And it's a good read for a beginner. It'll just take you through everything that you need to know. I also really, what I love about these books is that even after I've read them and I learned how to do my birth chart, later, I've always gone back to these as references when I want to look at, like, well, what does it mean if my south node is in this house and it's connected to this? And, you know, it does a lot. It gets into the depth of all the aspects as well. So this is Understanding the Birth Chart Astrology by Kevin Burke. Another book that I have found very helpful, this is Llewellyn's new A to Z Horoscope Maker and Interpreter. This is by Stephanie Jean Clement. Again, I'll put this in the chat, but this is Llewellyn's new A to Z Horoscope Maker and Interpreter. This is probably 20 years old, so by saying it's new, it's 20 years old at this point, but a good book. These are the books that I learned on. And again, this is also a really nice book that has a lot of things that you can go back to later for reference, but also teaches you in the beginning how to interpret a chart. Okay, and then finally, this is the first book I ever got. It doesn't even have a cover or a back cover on it anymore. It's too well loved. This book is called The Only Astrology Book You Will Ever Need. Now, I don't believe that to be true, but man, this took me really far in this book. But what I will say about this book is that I got this book in the late 90s, I believe, and it teaches you how to do a chart by hand. So if you would like to try it, this is how I learned. I did like all my friends' charts by hand. You have to get an ephemeris, you got to look stuff up. So if you're into that, this book is really cool. It'll take you a long time to go through it and to learn it that way, but I found great value out of it. You know, today we can just put the birth info into an app and it will tell us all of that. You do not need to know how to create your own birth chart by hand if you're not interested in it, but for anybody who is, this is a great book. It's called The Only Astrology Book That You Will Ever Need. The author is Joanna Martine Woolfolk, and I will put all of this into the chat. Okay, so that is what I've got for you guys tonight. So I hope that you enjoyed all that. If I missed any questions in the chat, I will go back after this broadcast and I will answer anything that I missed. And if you are watching back on YouTube, put questions there as well. I always go back and I answer everything for you. Coming up next week, I believe on 4/1, we're going to probably talk about the full moon because it is the full moon, but I haven't fully decided on the episode title yet. And then on 4/8 and 4/15, we're going to continue our study of elements, and we're going to move into a two-part episode on the water element. On 4/8, looking at the foundations of the water element, correspondences and practices. And then on 4/15, looking at the shadow side of the water element. So I hope that you enjoyed tonight's episode. Leave a heart or a thumbs up somewhere in the feed that will help us get this out to more people. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Body, Mind, Witchcraft, and that will help. You'll always be alerted when we have a new episode up. You won't miss any of those episodes. It also helps us in our quest to get monetized. The more people that subscribe and the more people that watch our videos, the better. At this point, there are like well over 100 videos, so you can also go through and watch some of the old episodes, and that all contributes to us getting closer to monetizing the channel. And if you are not on our mailing list, make sure to subscribe to the mailing list. Let me drop a link in here. If you're watching back on YouTube later, you'll find this in the description of the video. Otherwise, where's my chat? Let me put this in the chat. Here is a link to sign up. You'll also receive a copy of The Witch's Guide to Shadow Work, and then you'll be on our mailing list, and you'll receive the weekly newsletter with tips and strategies and different things about witchcraft, shadow work, and energy work. As always, it's awesome to spend Tuesday night with you, and I look forward to next week. Until then, blessed be.